Um, so, um, and just to cover today, the workshop will be recorded. So it will be posted online on the Academic Learning Center webpage. So you'll be able to view it there, or if you had friends who wanted to watch, but couldn't be here, you can pass on the information that it will be recorded. So throughout the presentation, we'll be presenting. At the end, we'll have some time for questions. So if you ask questions throughout in the chat, we might miss it. So maybe if you can, hold on to it till the end of the presentation, but if it's really pressing and it's specifically towards something we're talking about, you can definitely put it in the chat. We just can't guarantee that we'll see it. And then that's kind of that. Yeah, do you have anything to add before we get started, Thomas?
No, I think you summed it up really well. Excited to get going on this workshop, and
Yeah.
we will proceed. So it's nice to see everyone, and we will continue admitting people as we go.
Sounds good. So in the presentation today, we'll be actually using a program. So we'll be using Zoom, and then also switching back to a web page called Menti. So if you guys are on your laptops and you have your phone handy, you can go to this website, www.menti.com, and then enter the code that we have there. And there'll be some like survey questions that we'll go throughout the presentation. So we'll kind of flip flop back and forth. You could also open it in a separate window too if you wanted to participate all on your laptop. It might be difficult if you're on your phone for the Zoom and switching to the website. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, if you're on a computer and you have your phone handy, you can kind of switch between both. So, but we're not going to be using it a whole ton, so you're not going to be missing out if you can't access this web page while we're doing the presentation. So
Yeah, and this link will be at the top of the page when we move to the Menti question. So if you miss it now, don't worry too much, because we will be putting that back on. So moving right along here, the first thing we'll start with is the Traditional Territories Acknowledgement. The University of Manitoba campuses are located on the original lands of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and on the homeland of the Métis Nation. We respect the treaties that were made on these territories. We acknowledge the harms and the mistakes of the past, and we dedicate ourselves to moving forward in partnership with the Indigenous communities in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. So moving right along here, the time management tips. So pretty much the most important thing about creating a study schedule is time management and getting really good at time management. So the 6 bullet points that we have here are the steps that we're going to follow when we're discussing creating a study schedule.
oops.
Sorry if I accidentally got muted by mistake there. Back. So yeah, so you're going to see each and every one of these numbers as we move through the workshop, so you're able to keep track of what we're talking about today. Okay, so the first thing is going to be keeping track of the important dates and deadlines. So you're going to want to do this for course-specific dates that you'll see in your course syllabus and your course outline. The types of dates you're going to be looking for are assignment due dates, tests and exam due dates. You're really going to want to plug those into whatever calendar you're using. Some people prefer to use an online or a mobile app calendar. Some people would prefer to do like a paper and pen calendar. Personally, I've done a little bit of both, and I found them to be pretty tangible. But I would say one really nice advantage of the online and app calendars is that you can customize your notifications. So say you have like an exam coming up, you might want to give yourself a notification 5, 6, 7 days in advance just to make sure that you're on track. But if there's something like a lecture coming up, maybe you just need like a 10 or a 15-minute reminder before that comes. So I think, taking advantage of that kind of technologies can be really helpful. And it's also important to keep track of university-wide dates. So reviewing the university's important dates and deadlines page on the website, which I'll show you in a quick second. Also keeping track of the revision period, the voluntary withdrawal date, the fee payment deadline, so on and so forth. It's probably a good idea to have those dates and those reminders set as well. And of course, dates and holidays that are important to you, which are probably already in your calendar, but maybe you want to have that highlighted as well. So like I mentioned, these are the important dates and deadlines. This is a screen capture that we took from the University of Manitoba webpage. Well, actually, this is from the first year planning guide, which we pull our information from the university webpage. So there's a few different ways you can get access to this information, but there are a couple key dates on there that we think are very important, specifically September 21st and 22nd, which are the closing dates of the revision period. You're going to want to keep that in mind. October 6th, the fee payment date is probably pretty important for you, and the VW date as well. The nice thing about this is it outlines the exam period well in advance, so you know that that's going to be a 2-week block. That's super important for you. So taking this type of information from each of your courses and the university wide is probably the best start for creating a study schedule, and I would do that as soon as possible into the year. So if you haven't done so already, I'd get going on that kind of thing now. And yeah, so here's our stars and the very important dates.
Mm-hmm. Our second tip for creating a study schedule is to create a weekly study schedule. So we've discovered creating a weekly study schedule is kind of a really good format. So you can start off with, a weekly calendar and then blocking off where your fixed commitments are. So that might be your classes, for example. Those are things that aren't going to move. They're at the same days during the same times every week. Same with going to work, right? If you work or work a part-time job, that's something that can't move. Maybe it's not the same day every week, but it's something that's not typically flexible. So that's something that you would want to start with scheduling into a calendar first. And then secondly, you would then add in where are your regular study times going to be. So on what days of the week can you study and between what times? So if you can look at our photo example here, we've scheduled in our fixed commitments. We've got psychology, our math class, our biology class, we've got work, and the gym. The gym's something that you should probably schedule in regularly too, or where are you going to get your exercise? And then these lighter blue areas are where we've kind of scheduled in where we can do regular study time. So if we have some time before classes or after classes or in the evening, we've blocked off some time. And then each week we can fill in what are we going to do during that study time. It is suggested, and I believe most of you guys here are first year students. So it's suggested that for every hour that you spend in class, you spend 2 hours outside of class studying. So we've kind of illustrated that in our image here as well. So it kind of shows you to really get everything that you need to learn. You're spending a lot more time outside of class learning those concepts than, say, you did in the past, perhaps in high school. And then fill in your study time with specific tasks. So you can see in our example, we've written what exactly are we doing in these study sessions. So before psychology, we're reviewing our psych PowerPoint that they're going to be covering in class. So just giving a quick glance over. And then we've got specific notes on what we're going to do after math class. So we're doing 4 math problems, being very specific and intentional with what we're doing. That's going to make studying just a lot easier too when you're really specific, rather than say, I'm going to study math. You're going to do 4 math problems from chapter 4. It makes it easier to get into it. So yeah, I believe that's all on that one. If you want to. And then this is an extension of what we can do with our weekly study schedule. So we lay out our whole week with our classes, our study activities, that sort of thing. But another trick that I like to do, and that's really helpful for me, is having kind of a daily checklist. Personally, I like using my notes app on my phone because I can have little check boxes. And I, as a student and still now to this day, use a lot of checklists. So writing in a list, what do I need to do today? Tip with writing a list is be specific too, right? So we've got an example over on the right side of our screen of, a checklist item, start English paper. That's okay, that's good. Some people can operate just fine on that. But for me, if I had start an English paper, I might start it and sit down and then focus on, okay, where am I going to get started, and waste 10 minutes trying to think, okay, what do I need to do to get started? So below that is our example of how we can be specific in our checklist and say, okay, research and gather secondary sources for our English paper. I know exactly what I need to do once I sit down. I'm not wasting 10 minutes, figuring out, okay, where do I go? I know, oh, I need to research and gather secondary sources. So that means I'm going to log on to the U of M Libraries website and begin doing some research. And another thing is we've put a time limit in here, 30 minutes. That's all we're going to spend on this. So we've kind of got a start and an end. We know how much time we're going to spend on this and what we need to do. Rather than, okay, well, how long is it going to take you to just start an English paper? That could be a 10-minute task, or it could be 7 hours. So being very specific and intentional with what you're going to do is just really helpful with, staying on track and feeling that you're organized and you're in control of your studies. Do you have anything to add on that, Thomas?
No, I think you
Nope.
you
Okay.
summed it up really well, and just to reiterate, like that could really keep you on track for your study schedule as a whole.
Yeah.
Instead of really getting carried away on something that was really supposed to be a small task, and that might chew into time.
Actually, one thing I would like to add is, these weekly study schedules and these checklists, they don't just have to be school related or like work related. Schedule in that time to take care of yourself too. So whether that's hanging out with friends or, walking your dog or, going to say hello to your parents or something, schedule that stuff in. Because I think we can easily get lost in our work as well. So yeah, that's just kind of another little tidbit.
Absolutely. I mean, having that good work-life balance is
Yeah.
massively important. So moving right along, we're gonna hang out on Menti right now. We have a question that we're gonna pop up. I'm just gonna move over to Menti on my end. So if you guys want to go on the Menti website and put in that code that we had earlier.
Can't remember the code, but it'll be pulled up right away here. As we're waiting, somebody put in the chat, does the 2-to-1 ratio for studying include homework or just studying? I forgot to mention when we were talking about that 2-to-1 ratio, so spending 2 hours of time studying outside of class per hour that you're in class, that's more of a guideline. So for certain classes, you're going to have to spend that amount of time or more. For some classes, it might be less. So it just kind of depends. It also kind of depends on the structure of your class also. So if your class has just 2 midterms and a final exam, that's going to, your time outside of the class is just going to be studying and keeping up with the pace of the course, not necessarily doing assignments or that sort of thing. Some courses have lots of assignments in them, and that might also help you study for midterms too. So it's kind of hard to say, is that just for homework or studying? It's both. Yeah, I would say. You're going to have to find that balance. It's not going to be an exact 2-to-1 ratio. So if you guys can go to Mentimeter and then log on with the code, it's 76224082.
Yeah.
And then we'll get started and
I'm
ask
also
our
gonna be
question.
voting on the polls too, because
Yeah.
one thing to do.
Me too.
Okay, so I'm going to go live with our first question. It sometimes takes a minute, so give me, there we go. Oof, that took too long.
So do you prefer paper and pen calendars or an online app?
Let the voting begin.
So there's the option to choose paper, pen, online, nothing, or other.
Very even.
Yes, very interesting. I'm a paper and pen.
I see.
Paper and pencil, somebody wrote in the chat. Pencil is good because you can erase that.
That's true. That is true. Yeah.
What are you, Thomas? Online or paper and
I'm
pen?
an online app thing. Like when I was talking about the notifications earlier, that was like that was my thing for like most of undergrad. So yeah, so I mean, hey, it's pretty split, and then we have a couple others. Maybe I wonder what else.
Yeah, I wonder what other would be, but I put
maybe
that
Rogue.
in there just.
Maybe Rogue. No calendar, no nothing.
Well, nothing was an option, so nobody has put nothing. So I don't know. But maybe, this is really interesting, and I think this is a great debate that we see students asking us: is what's better, paper and pen or online? And my answer to this is really nothing. Whatever works for you. Like if you can stay organized and on top of things and meet your deadlines by using a paper and pen, then keep using that. Use whatever works. If you're struggling with the paper and pen, maybe try an online app or use your calendar on your phone, something that can give you notifications, that sort of thing. Yeah, so there's no right or wrong answer. Whatever works for you is great, as long as you're meeting your deadlines and that sort of thing, and you're happy with that. Some people like to use both. I use a little bit of both, but I would say mainly I'm a paper and pen person. I need to see like a full visual in front of me, like what's coming up. So I like even just like looking at a whole like month calendar. That kind of helps me plan, and I'm a visual person. But I know there's lots of apps and stuff that work like that too. So
yeah, and don't be afraid to do a little bit of trial and error, like Amanda mentioned. She's done a little bit of both and kind of found her preference in that way. Sometimes it might take a couple terms to really figure out exactly how you like it. So don't be afraid to experiment and figure out what type of thing would work better. So it looks like we got pretty much everybody
Yeah.
voted. So split right down the middle. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I'm going to pause and then go back to the PowerPoint. So give me a quick minute here.
Good. Bullet journaling, somebody said, plus Google Calendar is another tool that somebody uses. So yeah, there's lots of different ways that you can organize your things.
Yeah. Okay, so Google Calendar, I like Google Calendar. I used that one, and I like the color coordination that you could do. So I would have like each of my courses with a different color. So even if I got a notification out of the corner of my eye, I could see what color it was, and I would know it's like, okay, that's English. All right. Which I thought was pretty cool, but I think I've already plugged online app calendars enough. So
yeah.
Yeah. So
Right.
moving right along here.
Sounds good.
Oh, did that already. Yeah, so our third point is communicating your schedule with your household. So some of you guys are living with roommates, some of you guys are living with parents or with family. So it'd probably be a good idea to let them know when you can't be disturbed, or when you're in a focused situation like a lecture. If you know what your lecture schedule looks like, it might be a good idea to relay that information, so that they know, when you're going to be busy and when you need to be attentive to your work. But also that includes, exam and exam preparation periods and things like that. It would be a good idea to let your folks know. But also it may help you stay accountable for what you need to get done. If you share your workload, your schedule with people that you're with, they may ask you how things are going, and how what you found going well, what you find is not going so well, and you can really get a lot out of that conversation and that feedback. So I think there's a lot of benefit to communicating that kind of thing with the people you're living with.
Yeah, no, I agree with that also. No, carry on. I don't need
to talk. Yeah. Oh, no, thanks for that. For sure.
So number 4 that we're touching on is build up a study habit. So have a dedicated study or workspace that's only for studying. I like telling this story. This is true Amanda in university fashion. I loved to study in bed, which is probably the worst place to study. Terrible. I didn't love it, but I would be lazy sometimes or unmotivated and say, okay, I'm just going to read my textbook while I sit in bed here and be nice and comfy and cozy. 3 hours later, I would wake up from a glorious nap, ending up being a total waste of time, really. And that's because my bed was not a place to study. It's a place to sleep. So I don't know how many times I did that, how many times I didn't learn. I think sometimes I made that decision kind of knowing in the back of my head what was going to happen. But having a dedicated study or workspace that you can go to and study is going to help you in the long run. It's going to build that habit. And as human beings, we're creatures of habit. That's how we function, and how we function optimally. Like, we need that that signal, like, okay, this is where we study. So just kind of like bed, right? Our bed, if we lay down, that's where we go to sleep, and we fall asleep really easily there, as compared to, if we tried to have a sleep um, in a chair in the backyard. I mean, it's going to be a lot harder to fall asleep in something like that compared to your bed where you sleep all the time. So and then another suggestion for creating a study habit is to create a personal ritual to get you in that studying state of mind, or to get you in that mood, or to signal to yourself, okay, it's time to study. So whether that's making a pot of tea, or putting on music for 15 minutes, clearing your desk, just something that kind of gets you ready and in the mood to do that. And another point is make your study habits small, rewarding, and easy to repeat. So our example is study for 25 minutes. Uh, it's going to be easier than studying for 2 hours. And it's true. You can, that's the length of a television show before Netflix, right? Was, kind of a half an hour show. So those are some little tips for how to create a study habit. Once you get into the rhythm of this and start doing this, at first it might be a little bit hard, right, to get into it, but if you stick with a kind of a habit and a routine, and go with this for a little bit, it'll be easy. And then once you go and sit down at that desk or wherever you're studying, it'll be a lot easier to dive into what you're doing. So
Yeah.
yeah. um, and to kind of tag on to that final point that we made on the last slide, was use the Pomodoro technique for efficient studying. So keeping your study sessions short and then easy to repeat. So the Pomodoro technique is studying for 25 minutes and then taking a 5-minute break. Study for another 25 minutes and then take a 5-minute break, and do that for a period of time, whether that's an hour, an hour and a half. um, that's going to be a lot more efficient and effective than, say, studying for 2 hours straight, sitting there and with your nose in the book without lifting your eyes off the page, and taking your mind elsewhere. Um, you know, Short chunks of time and then taking a 5-minute break. Or 10 minutes. So you can adjust this kind of to what works with you. So, as a student, you might get on a roll, right? And realize, okay, I'm typing this paper out. I've got some ideas flowing. I don't want to stop. You don't need to necessarily stop at the 25 minutes. You can carry on, go for half an hour, 40 minutes, and then take a 5-minute, 10-minute break. But this is kind of the structure of the Pomodoro technique: 25, 5 minutes. But of course, it can be modified based on, what you need, and how well you're working on that day, right? Some days I was, would work really well, and 25 minutes was too short. Other days, 25 minutes seemed like it was way too long, and I just needed 5 minutes and then needed to take a 2-minute break. So it kind of depends on what you're doing, and how you're feeling that day too. So it's adjustable for sure, but this is if you're struggling with where to start, this is a really good starting point.
Yeah, and to kind of build on that a little bit, I think another degree of variability is, or at least I found, was depending on the time of year, how much my brain can do at once. Like, so earlier in the term, I often found myself like struggling to do concentrated work for more than 25 minutes, or even 25 minutes in general. So I would do the 25 and the 5 and really work at that ratio. Whereas kind of when I'm in mid-season form, and things are going, a lot better, my brain's all warmed up and doing well, then I would push it up to like 45 minutes or 50 minutes, and then adjust the breaks accordingly. I think for a while I was doing like 45 minutes and then 15-minute breaks. I felt like I just accomplished more. I could handle it. I didn't lose any efficiency. And it also gave me some time for the break time so my brain can recover so I can do it again. So depending on the time of year and the task that you're doing, you might want to play around with it.
Yeah.
But this little technique, a lot of people do this in the workplace as well. I know that I try to keep this in mind because the research that went into this, I believe, can extend into the workplace and things like that as well. So they find that a lot, like this ratio helps people be efficient, productive, and really, like Amanda mentioned, have a place to start with the work that they're doing, especially if they're facing a little bit of procrastination.
Yeah. Somebody mentioned that a 10-minute break makes them feel more distracted. I kind of laughed. And I can appreciate that and relate to that also. And my suggestion would be, you know, if you are finding that you're getting distracted on your breaks and say, yeah, that 5-minute break is then turning into a 15-minute break or, you know, a half an hour break, is to set an alarm on your phone to remind you to get back into it. But I mean, don't eliminate the breaks entirely. If you are, you know, getting totally distracted on them, try and figure out how you can manage that. Because the breaks are important. That's that time our brain needs to kind of relax and kind of let all that stuff that we were working on settle in there. And I kind of use the example that, you know, of, you know, I'll be thinking about something and trying to remember something and just racking my brain to figure out what was that thing, and then end up giving up or leaving it be, and I'll be doing something entirely random like washing dishes or something, and I'm like, that's what I was thinking of. And it was that break I needed from thinking about that problem or trying to remember that certain thing, you know, that break of really doing something just kind of mindless or unrelated for my brain to kind of build those connections. So I don't know if anyone can relate to that, but that's kind of how I like to explain the importance of the breaks. So
absolutely. And you guys may enjoy the next Menti phase of this workshop. So we're gonna go back to Menti. I'm going to pause my share and then move right along.
You guys are funny in the chat. This will be posted on the Academic Learning Center website. So umanitoba.ca, I believe it's /academic learning. It'll be at the end of this presentation. And then it'll be saved under our academic success workshops. So, okay, are we good to go to the next slide?
Yeah. So here's the one we already did. I'm gonna move right along.
Where is your favorite place to study?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this one, you get the chance to say like some words, and you'll see if a lot of people say the same word as you, it'll be larger on the screen.
Bedroom, desk, kitchen table, desk in the basement. Your mom's house.
Okay. Starbucks.
Coffee shop, Starbucks.
I like Starbucks. That's cool.
I've never actually gone to Starbucks or like a coffee shop to work or study. For me, I think that would be distracting because I get easily distracted. I need like a quiet, undisturbed environment.
Like it would have to be one of those cafes that are dedicated to studying.
Yeah, possibly. So yeah.
But I guess
library is our biggest one. So lots of people studying at the library at their desk. Yeah, outside, so having like a dedicated desk.
Outside is good, especially when the weather is nice, as it's still hanging on. So take advantage of that while you can.
In front of a window. I agree with that, actually. I have my desk right now in front of my window, and I like to spy and see what's going on in the neighborhood as I'm working.
Yeah, a lot
Sunny
of folks.
areas, yes, that actually I think helps a lot too, being in the sun. Yeah, across the board is a bad place to study, but it's fun with friends. Yeah, and that's kind
I
of
guess that's
a funny thing too, is
yeah.
where's that line, right? Of like, yeah, studying with friends and, and the distraction and that sort of thing. So,
Yeah. Okay. So it looks like most people have voted. So remember this. This is cool. If you need some more ideas on where you can study, maybe keep some of these in mind so you can try them out.
mhm.
And I will move on to our next question, which is about the Pomodoro technique that Amanda told
Have
us
you
about.
used the Pomodoro technique? More have used it than I thought.
I think it's gained a lot of popularity during the online learning era. I think a lot of
Mm,
people, because it's one of those things that you can do over Zoom and stuff like that. Have some friends going and do it like a group
right.
sort of thing. So I think it did gain some popularity, but um, so it's pretty decent split. Um, for those who haven't tried it, if you're struggling with some procrastination or you feel like you're not the most efficient with studying, um, might be a good thing to incorporate.
Okay. Should we jump back into the PowerPoint?
Yeah, let's do it. Okay, I'm going to pause that. Okay, everyone can see my screen again.
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so moving right along. I know you guys are gonna like this next one. Getting a study buddy. So we've been talking a little bit about having a good study routine in a certain area. Making sure that you're limiting the distractions, making sure you're in a good posture, not on the bed, not on the couch. We also been talking a little bit about the Pomodoro technique and having like a certain time frame. So sometimes having a buddy there can help with some accountability and help you get off your feet with studying. Maybe you're facing some procrastination. Maybe you feel like you're not studying in the most efficient way, or you're having a really hard time getting going. Having a buddy there who's also facing that kind of circumstance, you can really work off someone else and do it as a team. And in general, doing things with someone else is usually better than doing things alone. And this is something that you can do over Zoom, like I mentioned, or even just over the phone or something like that. You can have someone there, working at the same pace, and in those break periods, it gives you someone to chit chat with. I guess only real caution here would be choose someone who's got a similar workload as you. You don't want to have someone who's done after the first 25 minutes and they don't have anything to do for the rest of the night, because they may be tempted to extend that 5-minute break period and have the rest of the night off. So that might not be the best thing, but I think ultimately having a study buddy, if you have similar goals, I think that can be really beneficial in a lot of ways.
Yeah. In the chat, many people are actually saying that they don't have any school friends yet to study with or to have as their study buddy, which totally right. Like we're studying remotely, so it can definitely be hard to find like somebody to study with or someone to hold you accountable. So like if you're wanting, I guess, someone to kind of hold you accountable, like you could always get, one of your friends who maybe aren't in school, but still to kind of check in with you. But there's also online study halls, and we'll plug that coming up on how you can participate in that. And then, yeah, I mean, maybe you guys can make friends in the chat here and kind of come across each other or something. So,
Yeah, no, it can be kind of
yeah,
hard, especially if you're starting university
yeah,
in like the online format to like where do you get all these academic friends and stuff like that. So I hope that you guys find an opportunity to get to know one another, even if it's just a few people, that can make the world of a difference. And hopefully
hmm
before too long, you guys can see each other on campus again and everything like that.
yeah,
So here's some of those online timers that we were talking about. There's the Forest app, the Focus Keeper app. You can just use regular timer as well if that's what you like, but you know, you can pick like the amount of rounds of studying you're going to do, maybe what's your goals, etc. I think there's the Forest one. You got to keep your tree alive or something like that, based on what you're doing. So there's a lot of little, make you can make maybe a little game out of it.
hmm
But yeah,
And our sixth tip is adjust and readjust your schedule as needed. So be flexible with your schedule. So I said earlier, make a weekly schedule, kind of plan out what are you going to do this week. But if something comes up, it's okay to change it. Or, perhaps you end up struggling a little bit more in one of your classes than another one. Then maybe you need to allocate more time to that class and less time to one of your other classes that you're doing okay in. Um, so try and be flexible. That will help you. You don't need to be glued to, this set schedule. I need to do this every single day. I mean, things happen, life happens, things come up, and you have to change your schedule and rearrange things. So um, yeah, so be flexible and don't be hard on yourself either. If you don't get to something, then how can you fit it in the next day, or what can you do to make up for it? Um,
yeah, yeah, and just kind of building off that a little bit. When you build your study schedule at the beginning of the week, you're basing it off a little bit of predictions on how long you think certain things are going to take. I know, like out of experience, I had a habit of underestimating how much time certain things or most things would take. For instance, I'd allocate like an hour for something I could almost guarantee would take me about an hour and a half, and that's okay. It's just, but it is important to have some flexibility in your schedule, because things might go, over budget, or certain dates may appear that you weren't aware of, or maybe you need to readjust, a group study session that you had planned out. Things do change. So I think one of the most important skills that you can get in university is being flexible and just kind of making it work.
and then this is just an image of kind of really how our schedules end up working. They're not a linear start and end here, a straight line. There's a lot of twists and turns in there. Things come up and throw our schedule totally off, and we've got to reroute and work through things. So it's just kind of a fun image. And I'd just like to say this, if something really does come up and it totally interferes with your school and you're feeling totally lost, always feel free to reach out to an advisor or us, call our office, and an advisor can try and help you work through this or provide you with some resources to get through it also. Um, so yeah, go to the next slide. And then this is where you can find the Academic Learning Center services. So they actually offer tutoring appointments. And if you want a tutor to sit down with you and create kind of a study schedule, a plan of what you can make work this year, a tutor can actually sit down with you and specifically work with your schedule and come up with a study schedule. And then there's also a button to join the virtual study hall on that same site too. So at the website below is where you can find that.
So yeah, here's once again a summary of the steps that we went over for creating your study schedule. So take these, make them your own, and hopefully your study schedule goes well. Like Amanda emphasized, be patient with it, be flexible with it. There's going to be a little bit of tailoring to yourself, but hopefully over the next few weeks and the next few months, you really get good at getting your study schedule, and you get the most out of university.
Yeah, yeah. And I'd just like to, encourage you all to try and create a study schedule, figure out what works for you, play around with it. And yeah, just a reminder, because I forgot, most of you are all first year students or in your first year. So university is a little bit different than what you might be used to in high school. And that's kind of why we really encourage you to create these schedules and be on top of things, because in university, your professors aren't going to be reminding you, when to start doing things. They're going to expect that you are already doing them. So yeah, I mean, you're going to have to figure out, okay, when do I need to start writing my paper? When should my first draft be done? When should that second draft be done? And because your professors aren't going to remind you, okay, your first draft is due or should be done by now, and you should be working on completing it. So it's it'll be a lot more independent, I guess, studying and learning. So just kind
Yeah.
of something I wanted to add.
Oh, definitely. That's a good point. And I think, based on some of my conversations with students recently, a lot of people are kind of really experiencing some of the big differences between high school and university firsthand. So thanks for mentioning that, because I think a lot of people can really relate to that right now. So moving on, I'm going to stop recording our presentation, and we're going to get some of the questions in the chat and try to go into a little bit more detail. So I'm just gonna stop recording.